Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to 7 billion humans. So I've kind of decided that I need to just jump into the game quicker and do a lot less off-screen stuff. I did accomplish, I believe, one thing, but then I lost my notes telling me what I accomplished. I think it was terrain leveler. Yeah. I got this, and I got the speed or the commands. What was it? I got the speed challenge on accident when I got the solution. So basically, that unlocks yet another thing where we could. That's not even the right solution. I must have been working on a different solution. This must be the right solution. Basically all this does is go up and count the numbers and add up the columns, and then it adds up the rows, and then it divides them, and it's a lot of just adjustment, frankly, to get things to work. It's not high level at all, and that is something I'm recognizing about this game in my dissatisfaction with its programming language, is that they really are giving you challenges here that are so low level and so impractical and so things you would do in school for sure, but things that are totally unimpressive to tell even your classmates who would be at your same age even. And there certainly was probably a lot of that in my computer programming classes too. If I had run around throughout my high school years and told my classmates of the same year that I had made a program to just average numbers, that they would have been completely uninterested. In fact, even if I'd written in a really cool program, they would have completely been uninterested. I only recall a few times that I was actually able to make a program that even caught anybody's attention. And that, like, one time I programmed in BASIC in like middle school or elementary school, how I programmed in BASIC program how to translate Morse code, and people were kind of impressed by that. I programmed Pong once, and I think that impressed a lot of people. But the vast majority of things, like, there really wasn't anything there. And you get this weird, at least I got a lot of this weird adoration, adoration, I guess is the right word, from people where they'll go, oh wow, that's so cool, and then that's about it, and maybe they're just faking even that. So it's not like people could really engage with a program you make if they're not into programming themselves. They'll just say that's so cool, and then have nothing to contribute or add to the subject if they're not a programmer. So yeah, that kind of sucks. I have all of the answers open from a helpful Steam community post where I can copy and paste it, but I don't think we'll quite do that yet. But instead we'll just use the skips. Since we got back a skip, we only have skipped this one, and we could skip this one and several more and just get to the end. And we really do need to wrap up. And I've really just been banging my head with all kinds of things, to the point where, like, I couldn't imagine myself wasting another hour trying to get this to work, to get those optional challenges, or trying to get this to work, which I could get this to work, certainly, if I put a lot more time into it. I'm just not interested enough in putting more time into it, because this really is just like the wrong path. It kind of, I guess the equation, since this is not the language for me, is to say this would be the equivalent of me going into a learn Mandarin Chinese classroom and trying to learn Mandarin Chinese. Like, that's not a language I have any interest in learning, and it would be incredibly difficult. I probably could eventually, through a lot of work and a lot of effort, get a basic introductory understanding of Mandarin Chinese. It's just not something I'd want to waste my time on. This one in particular throws me through a loop, because there's like no way that I can imagine that this is better, or that I could optimize that more. And then we have this understaffed sorting that I spent a lot of time on and didn't get really very close. The nefarious thing about this really is because you've got to get these group of two people to act basically as a carrier shuttle, always right next to each other, but always willing to go backwards and forwards. And that's going to be a lot of programming to always make sure that the cube to the left is the smallest. And since you have 3 sets of 2, you're going to have them go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. This would be an incredibly long puzzle. So, and I, again, just don't have any interest on it. So let's just skip through this. We'll have 3 remaining skips after this, and we can cheat to get all of these back. But I really need to see some fresh information. So let's see what the sorting floor looks like. Odds are this is not going to be super easy or anything that I'd want to do, because I doubt it's very different. It's getting to be unseasonably windy up here. Well, things change. Yes, that grid of 9 data cubes also needs to change. Please sort it in place, like words on a page. Smallest at the top left, biggest at the bottom right. Sort the data cubes. Smallest in the top left, biggest at the bottom right. Each row according ascending left to right. And each number in the row should be bigger than all the numbers in the previous row. Okay. So let's see. Like, the first part of this, I would imagine what you'd want to do, and I kind of wish, if they were going to make this so drag and drop, I kind of wish I could just drag and drop a character and it automatically path toward me. Like, that would be an inefficient way to make a program, but it would certainly be helpful for introductory programmers if I could just drag this character and put them there, and just drag this character and put them in the middle, and then a character here and a character here and a character here. That's really where the beginning of this is. Is we would want each of these to step up a couple times, and then we would want at a certain point a if statement. Let's see, I'm going to take like 5 commands to do something like this. If to the lower right of you is a data cube, step to the lower right of you, and then if below you is a data cube. Is nothing. Step to the left. So 7 lines of code, I think, just to get where I want to go. To start with, 8 lines of code. Okay. Why did that work that way? I guess because, see, if lower to right to use the data cube and above you is a hole. Yeah. And it's just going to be like 2 more lines of code before we even get further. Let's see, if the left of you is a whole step back up. And this is a very rough and dirty solution to just get them in the right place in the first place. Like 10 lines of code just to do that, where ideally you would be able to just make one hard-coded line to tell them where to stand. And then what you probably would do is try and identify which number is the smallest and pick it up, and then have the center person find the smallest number. If it's not here, pick it up, and then have this one pick this one up, and then have this one walk over here and put it down, and then have this one put it walk down here and put it down. And then you're gonna have this one have to do something. At least that's my thought, and I don't, maybe that is just crazy. Maybe it is easiest to have, well, you have 6 characters instead of 9, but you do have 9 spots down here, so it would be somewhat easy to find the smallest number by just standing in the middle and then taking it and putting it here, and then having that code repeat to put it here and here. And I don't even know what extra code you'd have to put in here to get it to kind of wrap around and do that next row, and then wrap around and do that next row. It does seem like this would be super easier with 9 guys, but yeah, that's not interesting to me. It really isn't interesting to me after 5 to 10 extra hours of gameplay. And so then the next one we had, that is one that we would have had to do, is to make these pathways. And while I had some stuff that seemed like it kind of worked, I never ran into anything where I could really wrap my head around it and get a solution here. Like, part of the problem is getting them to hit this row and then kind of turn around. Also, you run into a problem where, let's say this is 1, 2, 3, 4. At this point, this should be 5, not 9. So what it's done is started with 4 and then added 5. 4 and 5 makes sense again. 4 and 5 makes sense again. But 3, 4, 5, 6 makes sense. But 2, 3, 4, 5 should be the next point. 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. And honestly, this should be 1. And yet it's somehow gotten changed to 2, I believe. Yeah. So these challenges at the late part here are just too hard, where it feels like there should have been a difficulty spike and then you should have fallen down that difficulty spike and had some calming action and some just cool puzzles that you could show off. You understand what's going on, something a little bit easier. And sometimes we do get easier puzzles at the very beginning of each colored branch, but you just speed run through them so much that it's kind of ridiculous. So perhaps there is a logic to maybe having 3 or 4 times as many simple puzzles after one long puzzle. So we have 2 more skips after this, and I'm just really hoping that we run into something that I actually have any interest in doing. And see, what's really crazy about this is I started playing this game because I was having the thought that I might want to write an assignment, a collection of assignments to teach Python for kids. And I'm probably not qualified to do that. Like Andy would probably, I don't have the connections or the accreditations to really get that kind of book or that like study guide or assignment sheets taught by anybody. And so I was playing this game thinking, well, this will just cure that itch that I get every year or so to do some programming. I do a little bit of programming here and there, and it really hasn't done that at all. Instead, it's just frustrated me, and I've moved on to doing some top-level programming. So after spending several hours trying to solve several of these puzzles, I decided to spend several hours yesterday instead configuring my custom firmware DDWRT router software so that it could encrypt and email me all of the logs. And sure, a lot of that is just Linux terminal command line stuff and scripting using just a script for the Linux terminal and using other programs. It is much more of a high level thing where I'm taking the work of other people, where people have put in a lot of work, and combining it and customizing it for my one use. But it is way more satisfactory and way more practical too. It's potentially a little overkill to encrypt the logs before emailing them to yourself, but not really when you consider that anyone's email server could get hacked, or somebody could guess your password on your email, and whatever email server you're using, there's a chance that people could be looking at your email, and giving the information of what's in a router log could be dangerous. It gives a particular insight to the configuration and the settings and the unique identifying numbers of the machine addresses or the MAC addresses of devices. So let's say somebody hacked into your Wi-Fi and did something extremely illegal on your Wi-Fi. Those logs might very well vindicate you, or they might very well incriminate you, because those logs may very well say, at this point and at this time, this device connected to your Wi-Fi network. So yeah, you really wouldn't want that information out there. And it was actually fairly easy to get the encryption to work. The only thing I couldn't get to work was to use elliptical curve cryptography instead of just the standard RSA cryptography, which is not a big deal. But even now you can see I'm more interested in talking about what I did just to tweak my router settings than I am to talk about this game. Let's move forward. It's time for reckoning. Every time we delete data, it leaves a gap in the storage room that data used to occupy. I think if you're going to put that and that next to each other, you should probably use a comma. Or you could just phrase this better. And when you're talking about a programming game that has a programming language, I think the English language should also probably be a little bit better than this. So it should just say it leaves a gap in the storage room where that data used to occupy. Over time, our storage rooms have become fragmented, sloppy sponges, and it's become inefficient to access or store data. So what can we do about it? We defrag our storage room. See all that fragmented data over there? Yes, please remove all the gaps between those data cubes and pack it into as few rows as possible towards the top of the room. We don't really care about the order. Yes, like a snowplow, just shovel it all up there. Okay. So that's not really defragmenting per se. It's simply moving data towards the top of the floor, which would be the equivalent of moving all your data without defragmenting to the first few sectors of a hard disk, which isn't in itself actually a terrible idea, because at the very least the data is easier to read and a little bit faster to read the data on the edges compared to the data in the center. So how are we gonna do this? Well, let's see. The nearest cube, and then let's pick up the nearest cube, and then see, step up. This might be easier. Let's see. This might be easier to simply, I don't even think you're going to use the for each in this one. Yeah. See, how many holes do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's 2 rows. So that actually makes it fairly easy. For each direction. And we don't even, we'll just go ahead and leave that though. That'll be mem2 if mem2 equals a equals nothing, step to mem2 and then drop, and let's see, then we're gonna step back to mem1, and then I'm gonna have it jump all the way up here. This probably shouldn't work. If this does work, I'll be a little surprised. They're just kind of looking. So is this working or not? It's like, kind of feels like it's sort of working, but we need something. We need them to decide to go. We're running into. Let's see. It equals nothing, and it doesn't equal a hole. But oddly, holes shouldn't count anyways, because holes are something. And see, it's for each. If it matches, kind of feels like there should be a jump section out of that when it succeeds. And I might have to decide to cheat this a little bit. Jump step 2. Mem 1. Why are they not going back? Oh, because they can't go back to Mem 1, can they? Alright, well, fine. Then we can simply have them walk downward. This is not the most efficient way to do this, I'm sure, but seems like we can probably just have them step downward until they're back at the bottom. I don't understand why these guys aren't finding it, though. We kind of are just missing that one bit of information. Is like, it should be in this for each command. It should be finding these gaps, and these gaps should be encouraging them to step to that. But so maybe we could just change this to not a data cube or not a wall, a hole. See if that fixes that. And still have yet to figure out the and or system that they're using. It's probably very much just how it's written. Like, if it was written differently, I probably would figure it out fairly easily. And I see the problem. I see the problem. That you cannot, even in this instance, where Mem2 is being filled, Mem2 is just often being given nothing as an option. So that should work, but it won't, because you can't step to nothing. So it does seem just like really stupid here. This really seems really dumb what I'm about to suggest. but we're just gonna have this try and drop everything, and we're gonna have it randomly walk this way, and then we're gonna have it try and drop everything, and then we're gonna have it randomly walk this way. So this just adds a huge level of well, if I'm gonna do that, they're gonna run off the edges. And it would be such a hassle. And I'm afraid all these programs are going to just boil down to this, just having to do such a huge hassle for no good reason. Just to make special code so that they don't run off the edges. Let's see, this will somewhat work, but then it's gonna kind of stop. And there's not gonna be, I could put in some extra code at a certain point to try and walk in different directions, but yeah, I've either completely lost the plot here, or this would just be 10, 20 extra lines. Let's just test that theory and look at the optional challenges. They want it to be 28 or fewer commands for the command size, and they want it to be 95 or fewer seconds. So there are 17 more lines of code that they want me to do just to test for things. Is there possibly a way for the for each command to return anything? Probably, yeah. If I was to say set a memory 2, or let's go with memory 4, to 0. Okay. Then we need to know where it starts in each command. And we have no clue on that. The game has not told us whether it looks in the lower left hand corner at first, or the right hand corner, or left hand corner, or it could be straight up, it could be straight down, it could be in the center. I don't think it looks in the center. Without knowing that this is going to be a blind shot in the dark, but we'll see if we can do this. If mem4 equals 0 after mem2 equals nothing, we're going to have this step that direction, and we're going to have it attempt to drop, which this drop and that drop don't really matter. I mean, they're redundant, to say the least. And we can probably put a label there. Okay. So they each found 0. But there's a trick to this that we have to do also, because that doesn't really tell us anything. We need mem4 to increment each time. Otherwise that would always happen, wouldn't it? So what I'm effectively trying to do is number each of the locations, and then from that location walk in a way and drop. So each one of those is incrementing, and they're deciding like 5, 6, 7, 8. So there might be a solution to this. That might be getting to the right direction. Let's see. That looked like 8. And let's see. Let's go 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Could it be that 0 is never right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Alright, we'll set that as 7. And this is just going to take a lot of if statements, if that really is the solution. And what's going to be irritating, of course, is that I'm going to look at somebody else's solution, and it's going to be this genius idea that I would never think of in a million years, and it's just going to put me to shame and make me very upset with the simpleness and elegance that very much might exist. I suppose it is worth mentioning that let's see, we need to get rid of this drop command. That the code I've found that have the answers. So we want to just see where this one stops. 5, 6, 8. I think the problem would be each one of these probably needs an exit first. And you would also want a simple test command here to see if what you're standing on equals nothing. Because if it is, if that's already the answer, then you don't need to do any more of the code. So yeah, those two should figure that out quickly. Then they should step down. And they don't need the drop commands. It's just gonna slow things down. In theory, this command should work. And yet, it isn't. And I don't feel like it's just because I've failed to completely fill out this code, which could prove itself to be very much a waste of time. see. Six and 3 and 4. So in theory that's all of them. That would be every single number up from 0 to 7. And yet these guys still don't seem to be able to do it. Should be for each cycle, Mem4 should be going up. And it does go up all the way to 8. So how are they all finding 8? Change the 0 to 8. Yeah. 41 minutes into this episode. I probably could figure this out. It doesn't feel like it's beyond my scope. That's 35 lines of code that we have right now. So there probably is a way to do this without having a test and having a number set around it. But there definitely is a concept here that has just been failed to talk to me. And you can see why they only let you skip 5 ahead, because honestly, if you skip even 1 ahead, you're just out of luck. You won't be able to go any further. It's just not going to happen. We now have a considerable amount of things skipped here. This one, I don't think we skipped that one because it wouldn't be any reason to skip that one. This one and this one. And that is gonna bring us to binary counter, year 64. None of this feels like it. Like this is the logical conclusion of the previous puzzles in any way, because the for each command, which was just introduced in the red track, has really no connection to the previous puzzles. It's not just a command that simplifies previous code, although it could be used that way. It's a command that is very much necessary to even be possible to read and write code that other people would understand, or you'd even be able to understand. What is this? How do they keep coming up with this stuff? Okay, welcome to the counting machine. Let's see. Okay, here is the goal here is to make the big screen count from 0 to 15. 0, 1, 2, 3, blah blah blah. 15 sounds easy enough, but you need to represent those numbers in binary using those 4 green sensors on the left. How do you use the sensors? Just put a cube on them to turn them on. When you have sensor inputs set up like how you like them, someone needs to press the big red button, and then we'll scrape the sensor's inputs and convert that number into the big screen. The 5 sensors all the way on the right represent 1. First sensor all the way on the right represents 1. Next sensor represents 2, then 4, then 8. Red button adds them all up, and blam, display on that green screen. It's all so simple. So yeah, this is also simple if you understand binary, but if you don't, then you're doomed. Okay. If up here is not a worker, listen for high. Then I'm gonna tell you to tell the person directly in front of you. Oh man, I just couldn't care. Let's just talk through this, because I really couldn't care to spend the next 20 minutes anymore. I'm so checked out on this game. This is a weird rage quit that we're basically going through the process with. But let's just talk through this process, and then let's just get done with this. Ideally, what I would want to do is have this one be the main triggerer. So tell everybody else to just wait. This one will tell this one to go and pick up this after this one had already stepped on the screen, which I assume, since this already says 0, that's fine. We could probably just go down and just see this a little bit. We don't even know how you push the button, so I assume that is just a stamp on it situation. So step down, step down, step down, and then tell the person hi. Yeah, so that was 0, and I stepped down one too many. And then the next thing you would do is have it go back up to and tell the person to go. And then you probably at a certain point would just go through a loop like that. And that probably would be the way you would do that, is just have it go back and forth, go back and forth, and everybody else you probably want to say if to the right of you equals nothing. You probably want them to then pick up the cube in front of them, step down, and then step down another one, and then drop it. See, that's how you get to 1. Of course, at that point, you would have them listen for hi again, and then you would tell them hi when you're at this point also. And at that point you would want them to pick it up and then step up. And probably it would be more efficient to just have them step up twice, just to keep everything in the same positions. And then at Actually, you probably wouldn't want them to step up that way. You probably want them to do that and then tell the next person in the loop to go. But I don't think this is going to work after the first couple of cycles of this. Yeah, because now the next part of this would be to have them. And see, they're saying, hey, you can ask for help. And see, I didn't loop that, which I think I would have to loop it back at that point, all the way back here. I definitely know what to do. It's just basically alternating, or not alternating as much as just recursively, because at a certain point this is just going to get more complicated, and you're going to have this one and this one fill, and this one then tell this one to do more work. Oddly, this guy stopped working. Alright, so let's see. Can we just skip this? Do we have... This is our last skip. So that's like our last skip. And then over here as a side puzzle, it's just the same puzzle. Ugh, sorry I'm late. I had to make my own coffee this morning. Usually it's already made, piping hot, just waiting for me in the break room. Sip. Ugh, this tastes terrible. Okay, let's see, I have a note here that says, the order must be maintained. Okay, it appears that this is just like your previous assignment. Pack the data cubes up towards the top of the room with no gaps between them, but this time, you need to keep them in their current order. Sip. Which honestly, if that's the way you would want to do it, then it probably would be just easiest to go all the way to the top left corner and work your way this way until you find a gap, and then work your way one further till you find the cube, and then step back that way, step that back way, and just kind of snake it backwards and forwards. Although you have to do it, you'd have to move these two cubes here, then you'd have to grab this one and put it in the third spot, this one put it in the fourth spot, put this one in the fifth spot, then move that over there, and just keep on down that direction. Again, I keep saying these are doable, and yet I'm not willing to prove it. So you'll just either have to take it on faith, or just chalk me up as to being not as good of a programmer as I think I am. But yeah, the whole thing is just getting extremely tedious and tiresome. What a treat. Our counting machine has been upgraded. It now works with normal decimal numbers. Don't worry. To you and me, that just means regular numbers like the kind we use every day. Like 31,337, which I guess is leets, is literally just 31,337. Yeah, if you read that upside down, it spells leets. Okay, got it, but beware. Each digit can represent only between 0 and 9. And if you try to go higher, boom. Otherwise, it just works like the counting machine in previous assignment. Pew. I'm just glad we have those young interns explain this stuff to me. Make the green display count up to 1,102 starting from 99,981. Well, that's sucky, but not impossible, because one assumes that all this is to, the first part of this is just to pick up everything, take a step forward, take another step forward, and then drop. Let's see if that works. Yeah. So then it just becomes a matter of having everybody wait to upgrade their number, and then this guy telling this guy to upgrade his number and stepping up and stepping down. So he'd change it from a 1 to a 2, which you can totally do, but it would just be like at least 20 commands. So let's look at what the optional challenges are. 23 commands. I see at least 20 of them would probably be involved around just adding up the numbers. So I don't really understand the system there. That way you could calculate it, certainly, get the value of the cube and move it up, and that probably would take it from 20 down to 3 commands. Yeah, this feels doable. This feels doable. In fact, it feels a lot less complicated than the binary counter. So as an experiment, let's see if we try to skip what it says, because it wouldn't hurt if the game actually did let you skip. You do not have any skips remaining. Go back and complete previous assigned things. Okay. So in the interest of time, now I'm going to start looking at the answers. There's not really any reason to go back all the way to number 2, which it's kind of odd there is no number 1, but I guess each one of these is skipping a number. Is that always the case? 20? Yeah, it always is skipping a number. It'd be crazy if there was some kind of secret puzzles in there. Yeah, it's not worth the effort to go back and show solutions. Even the listings of the solutions themselves say that it isn't worth their time to put up a new solution just because somebody found something that is 1 second faster or 1 second shorter. So I'm gonna start with year 49. This is a bit of code that is 7 in size and takes 15 seconds. So for this code, which has driven me crazy, this has been one of the worst. That's gonna really suck if this gets it in 7 when I've got code here that's 10, 12 long. Which one do we want to get rid of? Probably. Let's just reset this. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to keep any of these codes. So let's see how somebody else did it. You find the nearest shredder. Okay, that makes sense. You look to the left and right of the worker, and if you see a worker left and right of you, you listen for okay. Then you find the nearest worker, which that doesn't make any sense. Why would you need to know where the nearest worker is to you? And then you pick up the cube. You pick up the cube in front of you, and then you give it to the shredder. And then you tell... Oh. Well, here's a concept clearly I didn't understand. I did not realize you could set the tell to a specific worker. So that's why I couldn't figure this out, is there was no breadcrumbing to this or explanation on this. And so the idea that you can find your nearest worker and go and tell the nearest worker okay is great. Why does this work though? Because it feels to me like this nearest worker would be this guy. And this nearest worker would be this guy. I guess it doesn't matter though, because this one will do it. And then that one told this guy okay. What? Oh, she's telling this guy from that point, okay. Interesting. So they're saying it out loud, but they're not walking back to the person to do it. Yeah. So just an entire concept there I didn't understand. No duh that I couldn't solve it. Because there's just that missing piece. So let's now look. And I gotta do something about every time I turn my head, my microphone gets quieter. Let's now look at 52. 52 has 2 lines of code here. So it doesn't look like there is a solution that solves this for both solutions at the same time. And I wouldn't be surprised if this does use that one concept that I was not aware of to make this work. But this is 23 lines. Seems like what it does is it finds the nearest data cube and then it walks to the left until there is nothing, and so it hits a wall, and then it steps up and to the left, and then it goes up until there's not a wall, so it just kind of ignores this character apparently, and then it looks for a data cube and it sees if mem2, which is the value of mem2 plus 1, so the number of steps you've taken to the left. So it's looking to see if mem2 equals where you're standing. Interesting. So instead of going down and writing 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down here and then putting that in their memory, it's simply just calculating the number of steps to the left. So this one would be 1, 2, 3. I don't know how that helps it at all. Then it looks to see if to the left of it is a wall or a hole. If it does, step up. And then it sets mem3 equal to 1. And then it looks to see if to the right is a wall or hole. If it does, it sets it at 0. Then it uses that command to decide whether it's going to step left and right, which means this will be snaking back and forth this way, where I was trying to snake up and down this way. And then eventually it's going to step to mem1, pick it up and write mem4, which this doesn't feel like this makes a lot of sense. So what is in this one's mem4? or mem2? Its mem2 is 0. This one's m2 is 1. This m2 is 1. This m2 is 1. This m2 is 1. Interesting. And oddly, this code seems to have not worked. If this is not equal nothing, so if there's something there, so okay, I see what they're doing is this code doesn't move anybody to the left at all. I was mistaken there. Instead, it just counts up by 1 every loop until there's nobody on the left. So incrementally, this one will be 0, this one would be 1. Okay. But then it does have them step to the left. Just, I guess, just for consistency's sake, to reduce commands. And then we do have just the snaking, which this is what I assumed was going to happen. But what's interesting is I don't recall their... I don't think they set a marker here. Oh, mem1 is the marker. So that's how they know to get back to that point. We can just go ahead and speed this up because we know what it's going to do. And this is another point of the parallel processing that's a problem. It's just some people move faster, some people move slower, and it's fairly annoying. And that's the best code, apparently, that anybody has posted, or good enough. Let's see. Somebody has gotten it down to 19 commands. And then for the speed, we might as well do the speed while we're here. I might as well just get all the achievements. This code that I'll be bringing up apparently does it in 155 seconds, which even at that seems fairly slow. What is the actual challenger? To 158. And let's just see how this plays out. It just seems like it is a slightly longer bit of code that does it the way I was going to do it, and I just could never really get the programming to work. It seems like it does the number thing too. If we'll just go back and look. It seems like, yeah, there is a calculation here with a lot of jumps. A lot of jumps going on. But, yeah. So, yeah, that's the solution to that. Again, not really satisfactory. I had kind of understood that. Now for 53, the only one that we hadn't done was the speed, so I want to make sure I know that before I go looking for the solution, in case there is a speed solution, and there is. And looking at this code and how it's written completely different, let's just paste. Yeah, you can just paste over it. It really sucks to see that secondary language, which really feels like the language you should have been learning if that's the way they were going to copy things. It's not like the language even looks familiar enough to me that I look at it and say, oh, this would run in Python, or this would run in C++, or this would run in BASIC. So let's see how this works. Because this one was really driving me crazy as far as how in the world do you have this be more efficient? Apparently, the way you do it is you have a bunch of calculations to add up numbers, and then you step to the left to find those numbers. But at the end of the day, it does seem like you're just going to write those numbers that are now in their memories, and they're going to do the calculation, which would be the thing I would have thought you would have needed to take out of the code. But apparently you don't. In fact, there's quite a lot of calculations here, which then just gets back to the problem of this game, in which I just don't have ever a clue as far as why certain codes are considered faster than others. I can say, obviously, there aren't anybody that are listening or using if commands in this instance. So that was 20 commands to do it in 80 seconds, which was a massive 17 seconds faster than I was able to ever do it. And that's irritating. And if we look at this, somebody's gotten it down to 36 seconds. But I do still feel like a lot of those solutions are simply somebody cheated the system. They got a random solution that worked for them in that one instance and none of the other solutions. So next we would need commands for 54. Let's see, I keep clicking on the wrong thing. So, and in this instance, the solution for 54 is both successful on both of the optional ones. So I did do this one legitimately, but I can't even really remember. But I definitely spent way too much time on it. So let's just see how this plays out. They're all going to go up. They're all going to start adding. I definitely had some quick and dirty code that they could have done some other things. It'll be interesting to see if they all stop here or if they go up another step, because that was what was giving me a lot of trouble. Because if they all stop here, they do stop, and what they do is they just work their way backwards, adding the numbers together, and go this way, getting the maximum. And at a certain point it is just going to divide by 49 in the same way that I did. So 175 divided by 49 equals 3, and then everybody else gets that 3, and they move it there. Let's see. Then they just keep on going downward. How did they get the 3 though? Let's see, listen to high, then set your memory. Here they do. They just set it to that point. And so that solution gets it down the 25 commands and gets the speed. Yeah, they did it slightly differently, but they didn't really add any new idea like the previous solutions. Although there is a heavy use of the tell and listen, which I feel like they probably should have brought the tell and listen commands in way earlier into the game development. It should have been basically the first puzzle all the way down here. Tell and listen should have been included, and then there could have been an entire journey throughout this game to learn that system and learn interrupt programming, for lack of a better term. Let's see, so next we need the speed for 58. And let's see what that is. 58, 58, 58. We have one that runs approximately 350. And then we have one that runs approximately 80. Interesting. It's kind of funny that there would be two commands. And yeah, I'll just keep on overriding my own code, which it would be really nice to have way more than 3 things. It should be at least 6. I mean, when you just look at the visuals here, there's enough room for at least 7 tabs. So why not give us 7 tabs? Also, why not give us 6 tabs and a question mark instead of having to click on this guy to see what happens? So I've done this in 9 codes, and they want this done in 175 seconds or fewer, and my best speed was 861 seconds, so I really boned this up. This is going to go to the nearest data cube. Then it's going to look in several directions, which is if you're standing on a data cube and to the top left and the top right of you, step in a random direction, which that seems weird, but it does establish some kind of rule, some kind of pattern, and then it is just going to keep on doing that. I guess what this is saying is if you're standing on the edge, if you're standing on a cube and to the top left of you and the left of you is not a data cube, then you're standing on an edge. Although if you were standing right here, you still would qualify for that, so I don't quite understand that idea. It doesn't seem like that code would work all the time. And then it's saying if there's a data cube that's not to the left of you, or the right of you, or above you, or to the left of you, then, and you're holding a data cube, drop it. Otherwise, go all the way back here. Look how this jump command is hidden in the back here. So it looks like it's curving back up here, but it isn't. It's actually curving all the way back up here. See how this plays. So maybe they're looking for edge cubes. Maybe not. Seems like they figured out a pattern here, and I don't really understand the math here at all. But it does seem to me like what they've done is they've told it to make lines. Which lines work, and that definitely is a concept that I hadn't thought about. But there is still a level of randomness in this, for sure. So I don't know how writing random code like this guarantees that you'll make it in the right speed time. And that wasn't long enough to be under this number of commands. That's just utter BS. That is utter BS. If I watched that run on average, it would take more than 76 seconds at regular speed. Yeah, this game it's not playing fair. It really isn't. Then 59 commands. Let's see what the solution to that is. apparently you can do it in 6 commands, which that's infuriating to begin with. Alright, well, let's see how this goes. It's going to find the nearest data cube, step to the nearest data cube. For every direction except for to the right of you, you're going to see if you're standing on a 1, and if memory 2 equals a hole or is less than what you're standing on, step to memory 2. And this is where the and or situation in the parentheses come into be a problem. And so basically, parentheses if you're standing on a 1 and the thing around you is a hole, step to the hole, or outside of the parentheses if it's just lesser to you, then step that way. And I really do feel like I have to blame my inability to make some of these codes short enough does fully stem from the lack of a good way to depict the Boolean logic, the and ors, and make that work for people, or work for me. Like the game itself knows that some of these things, some of these programs are going to need way more space than they're providing. And this code, of course, takes considerably longer. So let's see 60 now. 60 is the first one we skipped, and this is kind of the rage quit scenario where I have basically all 5 of the puzzles I've skipped being right at the end of the game, and that's no fun. It kind of makes the entire game just feel pointless, because it shows you didn't learn anything. It's just a kick in the butt to say, ha ha ha, you're so stupid, you've wasted all this time, and at the end you've accomplished absolutely nothing. You haven't gained an understanding or an education or anything like that. So this is the sorting one, and so I'm just gonna paste the first solution, which I think is a command solution. Let's double check that. Yeah, 12 commands, 12 on the nose. So it's going to step either left or right, apparently allowing the characters to decide to split up. And it's going to look in front of you and see if it is bigger than the thing to the right of you, and if the right of you is not a worker, and the down and to the right is not a worker, and to the left of you is not a worker, and down to the left of you is not a worker. Another prime example of why you can have a fewer number of lines of commands is you've effectively combined 4 or 5 if statements into one. If all of that matches, which is to say a cube is bigger and should be moved, pick it up, then drop it, then step forward, then pick up the thing to the right of you, then drop it, then step to the right, then pick up the thing you originally dropped, then drop it, then step back up. Doing a little dance, a little U-shaped action. Okay. So my thinking was wrong that the pairs of people needed to be there. The thing about this code, though, is these guys are just going to bounce back and forth, and this code is just going to go on forever. There's no logic in this. This isn't something that you really would want to have done. This number 4, for instance, will eventually make it all the way to the left, and this number 1 will eventually make it all the way to the left, but it could be an extremely long amount of time before that happens. And you could run into a scenario like this, where workers will keep one of the workers at the very edge, in fact, there is a scenario where you could have one worker at the very edge over here stuck, one worker over here at the very edge stuck, and that would only leave a couple of workers in the middle. So it could take an extremely longer amount of time. But yeah, just because this is doing the right thing, it will eventually get there. But there is a ton of walking back and forth. You actually did it. I didn't think this assignment was possible. So that's how you do it in 12 or fewer commands. And you can see that was 268 seconds, which is not even that extreme of a length of time, considering how I've been able to write code that was like 800 seconds for something that should have only taken 100 seconds. So then the next command, and this really is as much for my enlightenment as for anything else, is considerably a little bit longer, but I think with a little bit more logic to it. You're going to look to the right. If you see a worker, you're going to take 2 steps to the left in the first time. So that separates everybody out. Then you're going to set whatever is in front of you as memory 1. Then you're going to do a whole bunch of tests again and decide to move things around if it needs to be moved around. Then you're going to take a step to the left unless there's a wall, and if there's a wall you're going to take a step to the right, and then you're going to get into a loop where you go all the way to the right. Elsewise, you're going to, if there's not a step to a wall to the right, you're going to step to the right, and then at the end you're going to step downward, which I don't think that code's necessary. Like that seems like that's just an extra bit of code for no reason. And it's kind of effectively doing the same thing, except for it's taking advantage of the fact that if everybody seems to be stepping in the same direction, you can kind of swap places automatically. There's no real code reason why that would be the case. And yeah, that's 200 fewer seconds, or 186 seconds. I'd like to see like what the fastest somebody got it down to. 155, 12 commands. It would be a lot nicer to be able to see these solutions written by the best of the best and uploaded, compared to just using solutions that are posted online. But I don't think there would be much of a change in that anyways. So next we have lazy pathways, which I barely made any progress on this one. So let's see, what do we want to get rid of? We can paste this one, but I think we are probably best off just erasing that. So here we have the shortest number of commands. It's going to step in random to the 3 directions to the left or the right, and it's going to say if you're standing on a data cube, then it's going to run a for each with mem1, checking to see if mem1 is a data cube. If it is, it's going to add mem1 to mem1 plus 1, and then if the thing you're standing on is greater than mem1, pick it up, write mem1, and then drop it. I guess that's going to work, but it's just going to be extremely random and fairly redundant, because there will just be people that will step on the same cubes potentially multiple times. But I guess eventually this will get it. But you do run a chance, pretty high chance of getting a character stuck right about here and stuck right about here, and taking their sweet time to decide to get all the way in here and do it like that. And there's definitely opportunities that you would just overwrite and miss a cube, and it could just take forever to get that right. This 99, these. Just look at all the cycles that are going through here with nobody getting anywhere close. Eventually, I guess all of these guys make it all the way to the left. So there is a chance of that, because you have 3 times the odds of going to the left than you do going to the right. But yeah, it is, even at maximum speed, still taking way too long. Yeah. This is the perfect example of why you would not make a program super inefficient just to save 1 line of code. Pew, that was a lot of work. Good job, everyone. But I'm being transferred to another office, so our cleaning team will need to clear this all up. I'm sure they'll appreciate what a great job you did. Yeah, and putting jokes in like that, where even the people in the story, in the game, are wasting their effort, just re-emphasizes the idea that it's wasting your effort. And see, this barely passed 50% of the time, and it took 1,114 seconds. I wanted to click forward, that way it didn't bring us into an error scenario. So let's see what the speed is. The speed one is 32 lines of code, and it does seem like it's probably a lot more logical. Yeah. If to the right of you equals a wall, take 2 steps to the left, otherwise you randomly go up or to the left, and that sets the cube you're standing on, the mem3, and then it does some math that steps in some random directions, a little bit more random directions because it can go up and down now. And honestly, this really does feel like it's just doing the same thing but slightly more efficiently. There is definitely a lot more calculation, a lot of setting numbers, a lot of potentially setting up some scenarios and running some if commands. Like, this is so complicated at 32 lines though, with these very long if commands. I don't know why this is particularly faster. I assume what's going on here is they had them all spread out a little bit more. They have them take 2 steps to the left, and if they can't find something to change around them, I think they're actually looking for cubes that equal 99 instead of just writing it all again. So let's keep an eye. No, they do seem to still be randomly walking to places and solving things. Yeah. This very well may be a program that was confounding me, not just because I'm frustrated with the game, but also because it literally can't be done with logic. It does have to have some randomness in it. And that's not really what I would ever want to see in a programming game. I'd like to see all of the solutions at least be doable with logic and programming, not with random steps. Like, and then you're just back to, why is that so much faster? Like, well, that doesn't really make sense. It shouldn't be that much faster than the previous one we did. So let's see what the solution for 62 is. And seems like this code accomplishes both of them at the same time. I'm a little surprised that this late into the game any of them would do that. Like, this is one we barely even touched as a puzzle. So let's give it a little bit more of a challenge. So it looks to see if the thing to the right of you is a hole, if it's not a hole, and then it's going to have you step to the left. So everybody steps to the left and dies immediately? I think that's what it says. Wow. I think it kills these two characters immediately. Then it sets Mim to 4. Then it says look up if it's not a hole, step up, and then continue to step up, which I think would just be these 3, which would eventually make this L shape. And then it says look to the left if it's not a hole, step to the left, which I'm not sure how that would work. And then step down and to the right, and I don't really know what the formation there would be. Then go to the nearest data cube, which I don't see a point for that. It seems like a lot of this might be redundant code. And then look at every data cube around you and see if that data cube is the smallest. Let's just play this. Let's just step this. Yeah, it immediately kills all but one of them. Wow, I didn't even get that part right. Then it steps them up until one's in the middle, and then it decides the smallest number, looking at everything, and it goes back and finds the smallest number again, and then adds an incremental counter, so I guess it knows where to go. That is sort of what I was going to do, but I was going to have each of the people play a role. But, well, I mean, it really goes to show how pointless the multiple thread processing concept is, that the solution that is listed and is, I guess, somewhat accepted as a solution is to just kill everybody but one and just make a regular program like a normal programmer would do. And that definitely has occurred to me in a lot of these programs, is that it might just be easier to think linearly with one thread than it is to try and make a parallel code that is run by multiple threads. And that's pretty much true in programming. Yeah, you very rarely are spending the extra effort to make parallel threaded code. And if you are, it's usually something like an AI in a game, and the AI in the game is just spawned in a different thread, but it has no real interaction with any of the other AI characters. Well, and apparently the solution doesn't even work unless you put them back where they started. So you have to then go through this whole secondary code to step everything back up. I'm a little surprised that they're moving everything up this way and apparently using these as like a marker to tell you whether you've moved the other two lines first. That is slow. And that is complicated. And I'm surprised they got so much complexity in relatively so few lines. But even at that, this is definitely a nightmare puzzle. 48 lines of code, and that did it under 169 seconds out of 174. I would have never made it through that. I really wouldn't have. Let's see what 63 has for us. It definitely sucks that I'm effectively skipping the last quarter of this game. And that can't, in anyone's book, be fun. So this is the defragment one, which again, these later puzzles, I really didn't put any effort into it. But I really don't care to put another couple hours. So let's see how this is going to go. They're going to look for the nearest data cubes. They're going to walk up to a hole, same as my code. Then they're going to set mem2 as 1. And then they're going to look to see if they can drop it. I got that far. And then they're going to say if mem1 equals 1, step to the right, elsewise step down, and then snake your way back to the left and start looking again and thinking about dropping things. So let's just hit play. Yeah, this is pretty much how I would have done it. Except for the adding of numbers there. That didn't occur to me. But I guess adding 1 might play as a way of solving this. And see, in this case I can just snake back and forth and fill in any gaps. They don't have to really do anything more. And this puzzle would have kind of failed if it wasn't so long, because finding the nearest cube could potentially have you find this one instead of like one way over here. And it does seem like these guys are going to do some redundant work. Yeah, in fact, I think the only reason why this code works at all is just a timing issue, because it does seem like you could very easily have them going in loops forever and never being able to fill it up. Yeah. Yes, speaking of packing, I'm going away for a little while. No, I won't be back. I'm sure your other boss will do a great job with whatever it is he does when I'm not here. What? Yes, maybe I'll get a little cottage on the lake. Maybe I'll write some mystery novels. I've always thought I'd make an excellent conductor on a ghost train. Either way, I expect I'll have a cabana boy. Please don't visit. So that's the solution as far as the number of commands. Let's see what the speed solution to that is. It's 34 commands long, and I imagine it's just going to be a little bit more logical and a little bit more efficient. So let's just hit play. They're going kind of back and forth on that one. We went through that really fast, but let's see. That was done in 31 seconds. Let's bring that back down to single speed and watch it again. It picks up the cubes. It goes up. It probably checks to see if it can drop something. And then it walks to the left. Then it looks for these cubes, oddly, and decides to go the other direction this time. and put some things down. And then these guys decide to go in different directions. And they only go back to where they last were, apparently. So it's just like slightly more efficient process. And then there's special code apparently to make that one drop it and not go back up and try. So yeah, there are definitely some optimizations there, and if I cared more, I could definitely see myself spending the effort to try and figure out the intricacies of that code. Let's see. Next we have the binary counter, which once again is just one solution. And see, the thing is, I'm not even looking at the code enough that it really is spoiling me. So if I was to get really ambitious and decide to come back and play this later on, I could probably still have a very similar experience where I just would frustratingly throw my head against the wall trying to figure out a solution. So let's just hit play and watch this go. This is one of those codes where, so they all start where they are and they're just going to stay in there. So that's an efficiency I hadn't thought of, because it doesn't detect cubes if you're holding them up in the air. So that reduces a lot of steps. But there really is only one way this would have ever worked, and it is the way that I was effectively going to program it. Is this using two commands? No, they're all just using... Nope, they're using OK and Go, which really confuses the whole issue quite a bit. What? You did it? I got lost when I ran out of fingers to count on. That was 16 commands and 48 seconds. It's pretty much what I would have done, or tried to do. At least let's not get cocky since we're cheating here. And at this point I could probably just skip my way through all of the remaining puzzles. But I wanna see this through, and I want to be done with this. So I want this to be the last episode. These episodes have also been incredibly long. In a funny way, I've gone from recently covering a visual novel that just went on and on and on to a programming game that went on and on and on. And yeah, I didn't even try this one, did I? So unless I copied the wrong code, I think this is the solution for both. Let's see. And it's weird you can skip puzzles that don't even unlock new puzzles. 25 codes, 500 and fewer seconds. Okay, let's see how this goes. So they're gonna go up and wait, and then step, and they're again using the internal code. This is what I said was going to happen, though, is that they were going to have to move everything around and snake this way. I didn't think that they would have code that had you walk all the way to the left and then walk back this direction, but that seems to be exactly what happened. It doesn't seem like there's any calculations in this at all. It's just all the if statements. So everybody is going to end up just starting here first and foremost, and it's just going to become this recursive solution where it takes more and more steps every time to get it right. This doesn't feel like this would be the most efficient way to do this code, because at a certain point, wouldn't it be smarter to just have all four of them know where the last cube is and then just walk to the last cube and have a value as far as whether they were walking left or right? Or they don't even have to have that value because they're always just walking right. And then some inefficiency here in which they're snaking downward looking for cubes that they really should know don't exist. It would be fairly easy to say, remember where the last cube was and remember where you picked up your last cube, and that would save a lot of steps. So it's kind of crazy that there's efficiency that's not being touched, and that's just for 23 commands. So yeah, let's get the other code and see how this looks when you're trying to code for efficiency sake. Because yeah, that did seem like particularly inefficient code. Yeah, instead you have speed, hard-coded programming, just a lot of steps, a lot of programming. And it is using memory a little bit more, but by the looks of it, it still does seem like it is kind of only memorizing the level, the layer it's on, and then working all the way to the right. And then once it finds a hole, it's still kind of snaking back and forth when it doesn't seem like that would really be necessary. I definitely feel like I could add more efficiency to this and make it faster, but would it be worth the extra 20 lines? No, it wouldn't. It's only worth it to be efficient like that if you're making a real world legitimate program that people would actually use to sort through like tens of thousands of like database entries. And even in that case, it may be just cheaper and easier to throw more servers towards a database and more processing power. That's 264 out of 500, so that code is already majorly efficient, though it would be interesting to see what the smallest success time is. 15 seconds. Wow. The goal is 500. Somebody did it in 15. Or somebody cheated the leaderboards and hacked the leaderboards, which is fairly easy to hack leaderboards. So you doing a little SQL injection, I imagine that might be the solution for some of those answers. So next we have year 66. And then I want to take a brief moment to change things up after this one, and let's at least think about and talk our way through the last couple puzzles. So yeah, this is as far as I was willing to even do, but honestly, if I had done the previous puzzle, I could have definitely started with the code from the previous puzzle and just made a slight adjustment. So let's see how this plays out. Everybody's going to step down here, they're going to put it down, and then they're going to tell them to add up the number and put it down, and then tell them to go forward. And it's just going to keep on doing that until we get to a point where this is 9, and at the point that this is 9, it's going to tell them to it's going to tell this one to add 1 to it, and then it's gonna wait for a command. So this one says ready, this one says okay. Now this one says ready, this one says okay, and this one again says okay. There is a problem with this though. It's gonna roll over and just be 00001, 0002 because there's not enough room on the screen. And I think they did that intentionally, but it's kind of ridiculous. Nope, it just squeezed down the image. I thought it would have been a lot funnier if it had just rolled over, or if a number 1 had just popped out of the side, out of like a cardboard sign. 1, 2, 3, ... Well, I believe you. Good job. So that's how you do it in 23 commands and 190 seconds. Let's see how you do it. Barely even looked at the code. Let's see the general idea of how you do it faster. Honestly, since I've given so little thought to this code, I don't see why what just happened could be optimized very much. Like, this speed code takes 95 seconds, where the one we just saw takes 190. And I don't know what would optimize that. It has it step this way and do more math, which normally calculations don't help. Like, this one is just counting to 10, and this one is adding up its number. And then it just tells everybody to roll over. Since, oh, I see what it did to optimize it. Instead of having it actually do the calculations and math, since we just had this one scenario, it just told everybody else just to wait, and when you got the command, roll over. Which is way more efficient in this extremely custom code that is in no way useful in any other way. And that's 46 commands to do that, to get it to 95. And really that is just a cheat. That's all that is. Like, that's not good code. That's not something you should teach, to cheat your way to a solution. So let's look at the decimal doubler. It's probably the exact same thing. Looks like this last counting machine this is the last counting machine assignment. Let's enjoy it. This also is my last assignment. It's been fun. Remember when we took a nice row of data and made it diagonal? Haha. Or when we escaped from a collapsing room by following the instruction. And then there was that time we all got cubicles. Those were the days. What am I gonna do next? Well, I thought I might make calendars. You know, like those daily calendars, with inspiring pictures of me on each day. I've been printing out photos of myself for inspirational quotes for years. Good thing we have all these company printers. Luckily, I don't think anyone ever noticed. Use the decimal counting machine starting with the number 1, display it, then keep doubling it, displaying the result until you reach 8,388,608. Which, let's see. That seems like that might be the maximum binary number here. Of 7, because an 8-bit number would be 16 million. Yeah. So it's half of an 8-bit number, effectively. You could do that, certainly. It wouldn't be impossible. I don't know how you could in any way justify that relating towards the things we've done in the past, though, besides the 2 previous puzzles. So we have another solution here, and honestly I don't even want to bother to try to do it. I'll tell you how I would do it. I would have them, having seen 2 previous solutions now, I'd have them pick up a cube, stand here, put down the cube, double the number using math every time, and have one wait, and then have this one go, and just keep on going that route. It is a more complicated procedure by far, because each one of these effectively has to have the numbers in their head to start with. So everybody needs Mim1 to be 1, I imagine, and then every turn they need to double, and every turn after that they need to double again. See if that's how that actually plays. So yeah, I do that, and then you say go, and then yeah, each one of these are gonna multiply their number by 2, and then they're going to then increase their multiplier, so now they multiply by 3. And there's nothing here that says the cubes would explode if you put a bigger number than 9 on it, which you kind of need that warning, because in theory you could potentially just have one of them double the number, and it would be way more efficient if this could get above 9. And that would still work. So yeah, they're just doing math. That's it. And getting up to this number is not even that hard, because it's just going to double each time. There's probably 4 or 5 more doubles until we hit it. No, it's a little off. With the exponential growth like this, you're going to do great. See you later, guys. Smiley face. And so that's the solution for that. 25 commands and just under the line at 241 seconds. And we've had to cheat since 59. So the last 10 puzzles effectively I've had to cheat, on top of which there was a good 5 other puzzles. So we're about 15 out of 70 puzzles are just not reasonable in my mind. Not worth the effort, not worth the programming. I definitely don't feel like Human Resource Machine was anywhere this bad. I do think that was fairly easy. And it's kind of weird they're ending on 69 too. It says bleep bleep bleep, bloop bloop bloop. Behold your computer overlord. You shall tremble before my superior CPU cycles, quiver before my glowing array of realistic 4 colors. Ha, ha ha ha, lol. Just a little computer humor. We've got decades of stereotypes to work against here, you know. Hashtag not all machines enslave humans. Well, it looks like things are wrapping up. Let's all just take one last look around and appreciate those realistic falling leaves. Yeah, that is kind of crazy. I would also probably argue that a lot of this stuff is asset flipped, like the backgrounds and the rain that is in something, and the leaves, the trees, mostly asset flipped. I imagine these characters are pre-made characters that have just been recolored and drawn over to be a little custom. But yeah, there's a ton of visual stuff here that's not that helpful. And then you've got the background music. It's all right. It's not obtrusive in any way. But it was never really great either. It would have been kind of nice if there was a different song when the programs ran, and there was some kind of reward sound or jingle that was a little bit better. Those are little tweaks that you would kind of expect from a sequel game that just aren't here. And appreciate that healthy orange glow. And appreciate the fact that whoever built this building never installed doors. So let's all dive into the exit hole down below. I need to stay here. But the last worker who leaves, if you wouldn't mind, would you just click that drop down and say goodbye? Good luck out there, everyone. So all workers must exit through the convenient hole at the bottom of this room. The last worker, and only the last worker, must say goodbye. Okay. It's not inherently impossible to do. You would have to effectively have a way of testing out this person, finding him, which it's not too hard to do that because he's the only person that will have a worker here and nothing here. Yeah, there's no other case of that. And then you could have this worker detect the nearest worker to him and say go to the nearest worker, and then go in a loop and just always say go to the nearest worker. Once someone reaches this point, they should be able to look around in the direction and see if there are any workers. If there aren't, they then would say goodbye. So yeah, that does seem fairly doable. Also, like, fairly easy for the final puzzle. I don't know why you would do this. It would be a lot smarter in my book to have had that been one of the middle puzzles, like 5 puzzles ago, something to kind of break things up. This really is not a puzzle that's even seems like it's supposed to be that complicated. So here's the code online. It goes, if below you is a wall and to the right of you is a wall. So in these cases, step this direction. Then if below you is a wall and to the left of you is a wall, and or above you is a hole, which that would never even happen except for in this one case, or below you is a hole, which would only happen here and here, step in those directions. So I see that. Then look for the nearest worker, like I said, and if the nearest worker to you equals nothing, tell everyone goodbye, then step down. So you don't even have to have them wait. They can just go. So yeah, they're just gonna file downwards and then step downwards, all the ones that then also can't work. So this is another example of a lot of these guys just using the internal mechanism to walk in the direction they want to walk, regardless of whether there's someone in the way or not, or whether that person will move or not. And yeah, of course we're gonna get it. We'll come back here and we'll see the goodbye. Maybe one day our space-time coordinates will intersect again. Bye. And it's weird that the end of the story here is that the boss retired, the human boss, or one of the human bosses, if not all the human bosses, retired, and they're back to computers controlling the humans, because the beginning of the story, of what little story there needed to be, and there is that the humans wanted jobs, and that robots made up these kind of pointless busy work jobs for them. And it's kind of weird to have a computer talking to them when these robots have been popping up in the background cutscenes anyways. Regardless, that code was 9 and it took 48 seconds. And that should be all the achievements at this point. I've done everything. So through cheating, I've accomplished all the achievements, and that's sucky, but that is frankly how I got half of all the achievements I ever collected back when I was playing the Xbox 360 in particular. And certainly I will say Steam's overemphasis in getting 100% of the achievements has continued to encourage me to waste time doing extra things when I could have just easily rage quit this. Yeah, as I'm scrolling back down here, I'm looking at the names of these as if I could even remember what these codes are. I don't think there would be any reason why I'd ever want to come back and do any of this. Like, no, I don't think I'd ever want to waste any more time. There will be some other programming game, something like Magnum Opus, I think would be a great game to compare to this game, because it abstracts the programming and makes it more of a video game and less of a just compiler simulator. Let's see the final cutscene. What's the big twist? In the first big twist, it was finally revealed that that giant robots were attacking and destroying the world. Kind of as a joke. There hasn't really been a plot line in the cutscenes up until this point, so I don't know what's going to happen here. And then you have Mom and Dad of Invention as the title, and I don't know where that's coming from. Year 69.
Look how far we've come.
I cannot believe you made it this far.
I'm glad you're here.
That
There is something I have been meaning to tell you. You see, I am a robot.
And surprise, I am a robot also. We're going to leave now.
But look at you. You really took these totally made-up jobs and worked together to build wonderful solutions.
And also,
A family.
You really put the meat in teamwork.
Clearly it was a mistake to solve all of the planet's big tough puzzles.
Unlimited food,
Unlimited transportation.
unlimited energy. More like unlimited boring afternoons. Ha ha ha, am I right?
It turns out life just isn't any fun without a really good problem to solve.
A nice tough pickle to crack.
A real brain tickler.
So we have one more puzzle for you. Are you ready?
We have placed a giant bomb at the center of the Earth.
You have 50 years to get off the planet.
Build rockets.
Figure out how to terraform other planets or whatever, because in 50 years.
Boom.
Good luck.
You're welcome.
Congratulations.
Have fun, everyone. You're going to do great.
yeah, it's just out of nowhere. Like the only plot hole or theme that has been happening here is that the robot lady was kind of sexually harassing a bunch of the humans. And the way that was phrased, I just don't really agree with it, because this game really hasn't given me fun problems to think about and solve. It's given me frustrating problems. And see, now we see more than 50 years worth of growth happening. Like, first giant as this tower was supposed to be, yeah, it would not have plants growing through it in 50 years. Time not that big. And these are just very simplistic visual effects of clouds. Really. Very little animation. Not that this game needed a lot of animation. And I guess they did it. They made rockets. And they escaped to new planets. Doesn't really leave you in any good way for a sequel, I would say. Like, because you get to different planets and then what? You get more programming puzzles.
Oh hey, they actually did it. Maybe they didn't know I was joking. I have one of those faces. Oh my god, this cocktail is amazing.
Yeah. Just like a pointless cutscene. I don't know why they would have bothered to even have that. And here you have some animation of the programmers that looks way better than the random characters in the game. I don't know why they wouldn't have used those animations as characters. Or at least have them show up. Carol, Alice, and Betty play really no role. I wonder if they might be from a different game, or they're thinking about putting them in a different game. Oh, apparently Boss Lady was the guy with the big afro. I thought that was a guy. Yeah, you can see considerably few people actually worked on it. Like, if anything, I guess my idea of making a programming guide very well might end up in the same way that this game ended up, where probably these puzzles made a lot of sense to the people who spent hundreds of hours, if not years, programming them, and they just lost perspective and did not realize how irritating the puzzles would be to a random person, even a random person with some experience programming.
Oh wow. It's so big.
And I don't get that. Like, is that him downloading porn or what? So yeah, there's nothing more really to say or do, as it were. A game that was fairly rushed out, I would say, too. It wouldn't have been a problem at all if 7 Billion Humans came out 4 years later than it did. Like, if it was a 10-year anniversary remake and reboot or continuation sequel to Human Resources Machine, that would have been fine too. That they really did try to rush out a sequel, and that they really didn't add anything that was groundbreakingly new. You do run into that problem, I imagine, if you are going to have a programming game. There's not too much new code or concepts you can throw out there, particularly if you're not talking high level concepts. Yeah, just not a satisfactory game in any means, anyway. Like, I can't really recommend people play 7 Billion Humans, where I could say you probably would have a decent time with Human Resources Machines. But honestly, if you wanted to skip it, or if you had no interest in programming, I would definitely say skip it at that point. That's going to be it for this series. And I'm going to probably try and play some dumb, fun first-person shooter game after this. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.